Hi, thanks for coming on. Andy speaking on Friday, 15th of August, looking ahead to the weekend. We're going to start in England this week. We'll talk about the Premiership first, because obviously everybody asked me about that and my thoughts. We've covered it anyway on the outrights. I told you there's only one bet for me, and that was Liverpool. I'm going to have another bet probably, but we'll see. Let's just see how they start, because I still think there'll be some value in this. But Liverpool is the only team I'm interested in. I think they're going to trot up this season. They kick off against Bournemouth tonight. I think they'll win that. Aston Villa, Newcastle, tough game to call. I don't think either of these two will be as good as they were last season. Then we go to Brighton, Fulham. Tough game to call. I think Brighton did ought to win. I'm told Marco Silva's had enough at Fulham. He was hoping to get the Tottenham job. He was considered. Sunderland, West Ham. I think that'll be a tough trip for West Ham. Again, back in the Premiership, first time, big crowd. They'll be up for it. West Ham, I don't rate at all. Tottenham, Burnley. Tottenham did ought to be winning that. Saw them the other night. Should have beat PSG, really. Look very, very tough to break down for once, and for once they look coached. I think he's done the right thing, giving Romero the captaincy. I was told that was the plan, and at the time of recording this on Friday morning, I'm told that they're close to getting Eze done from Palace. But it's got to be completed by midnight tonight or the release clause expires. But I'm told that a bid is going in today, which I would have imagined will cover the release clause. So I'd expect Eze to be a Tottenham player by this time next week. Savinho as well from Manchester City. He's been shown round the place, I'm told. So again, that might happen. It might be one of the two, but I'm told that they remain confident and they are going to push the boat out. Wolves, Man City, can only see one winner here in City. Chelsea, Palace. I think Chelsea did ought to be winning that. My only concern is the turnaround time for them. They've had a busy summer of it, Chelsea. They could hit the ground running and then tire around Christmas or something. So I think they've got a brilliant squad, Chelsea. I do. I think they're capable of going close. It wouldn't surprise me if they were the team that finished second. But as I say, my concern would be fatigue. They could be slow to get going, or it could hit them mid-season. I'm sure something like that will happen. Nottingham Forest, Brentford. I'd fancy Forest. I think Brentford are in trouble. Everybody's jumping ship there, and I think they're going to be back in the Championship. Manchester United against Arsenal. I think that's a tough call. I'd favour Arsenal. I think the United defence is useless. I can't believe they've gone and spent all that money on attackers, and you've got people at the back like Maguire and De Ligt who are completely immobile. They were used as well in the Donnarumma transfer, I'm told. I think the goalkeeper's useless at United. The defence is useless. I think they've got. I can't comment on this guy. People have messaged me this week about this Sesko, telling me he's brilliant, telling me he's a worldie. And like my answer is prove it. If he scores 2 or 3 against Arsenal at the weekend, brilliant. But you've got to see this evidence with your own eyes. It's like the guy I've just mentioned to you at linked with Tottenham, Savinho. He scored once for Manchester City last season. But City do tend to keep their wingers very wide to allow the runners coming in, the number 8s, etc. So you could probably forgive them that. This Sesko, as I say, I know nothing about him. I know somebody that watches German football, and he's told me that he's probably a top 6 or 8 striker in the Premier League. So, that's probably what United are aiming for this season anyway. Monday, Leeds, Everton. That's going to be a tough game to call. Really, really is. Everton have done some good business. We're on them to finish in the top 10. I think they will. But I think that's a tough opener. I think Everton and West Ham have got 2 tough openers at Sunderland and Leeds, because they will be bang up for it, and the crowd. The only team that's come up that's playing away is Burnley. I think they'll get beat at Spurs, but it wouldn't surprise me if that ended up being a low-scoring game because Burnley shipped hardly any last season, and the way that Tottenham set up against PSG the other night, that looks to me like they're going to be a very hard team to beat this time around. And it's like I say, I think teams that... I mean, I talk about Tottenham and Manchester United because they were two of the biggest failures of last season. I know Spurs went on to win the Europa League and should have won the Super Cup the other night. But I think Spurs and Manchester United, I think you've got to start turning some of these losses into draws and draws into wins. That's your first step. But it wouldn't surprise me if either of those two came really good. But as I say, I think United are awful at the back and they've got an awful goalkeeper. Whereas I think Tottenham's defence is a top 4 defence. It's up top, I think, that they're lacking. I don't see Solanke as the man to project Tottenham and fire them into the top 4. Sorry, I don't. I might be wrong, but when you consider they've lost Maddison for the season, Kulusevski's out for a period, Son's gone. I think I was reading was there's something over 90 goal contributions last season from them three in terms of goals and assists. That's a hell of a lot that you've got to replace. It really is, but we shall see. An interesting weekend. Best bet in the Premier League if I had to have one. I'd probably go with Arsenal at United. I think Arsenal will hit the ground running. And they're tough to break down. And I do think that I think they've got a top-class midfield. I think Rice, Odegaard and Subamendi. I think it's an absolutely world-class midfield. I really do. And I think at the prices, I could say to you, Spurs beat Burnley, Liverpool beat Bournemouth. They look good things. But for me... if I had to have one bet in the Premier League this week, it would be Arsenal at Manchester United. I think it's good value. Right, let's get on to League One. Right, Burton Port Vale, 33, 28, 39. And I think you'll notice when you just look down here, 33, 39, 42, 32, 37, 33, 37, 37, 30. There is not much between these teams this week. Do you know, this is one of those weeks where it is... I mean, we're early in the season, I know, but it looks a very, very tough week. Port Vale putting it 7-5. I think that's probably a tad too short. They drew with Cardiff. I think that's a good feather in the cap, but I watched that game and, as I said to you, Cardiff still look a bit disjointed. It will come in time at Cardiff. Burton won their opening game. They beat Mansfield 2-1, lost at Barnsley 3-2. I thought, and they were 2-0 up there. And Barnsley got a last-minute winner. Do you know, when I worked this out, when I was hoping this, I visualised Burton being about 7-4 for this game. And I thought, well, if we give them a 40% chance, because I did want to back them, because I know that they'd run Barnsley close and beat Mansfield. So, but we came out with them at 2-1. But had we come out with them at 6-4, I would have piled into that. But whereas it is, I don't think there's worth involvement. Exeter Mansfield, been quite impressed with Exeter. I think they were unlucky in the first game. An 88th minute penalty from Doncaster beat them. They hammered Blackpool last week 4-1. I think that's a good scalp, but Blackpool, I don't know what's gone on there. Mansfield turned over at Burton 2-1, then lost at home to Doncaster 2-1. And as I say, this was the same Doncaster that struggled to beat Exeter. And it's at Exeter. I'd favour Exeter. But on Barnsley Bolton, that's a really tough game to call. Barnsley have won both games, but I wouldn't be overly keen on them. They won 3-1 at Plymouth, which looks good on the face of it. But Plymouth should have been out of sight. They missed a bag full of chances that game. And last week they beat Burton 3-2, and they were 2 down and got, a winner in the last minute. I didn't think they were good things for this. Bolton got done at Stockport, beat Plymouth 2-0. Barnsley's form at Plymouth is probably slightly better than Bolton's home form to Plymouth. Yet Bolton are favourites. I didn't see that really. Blackpool Huddersfield. I think this is a really tight game to call, and I'll tell you for why. Because I can't believe Blackpool are going to be this bad 3 weeks in a row. 3-2 at home to Stevenage. They lost 4-1 at Exeter. 7 goals in 2 matches. That is not a Steve Bruce side. He would have gone up the wall about this. And they welcome a Huddersfield side who won 3-0 against Orient, 2-0 at Reading. But Reading looked completely disjointed. Orient, again, I think were probably a bit undercooked first week. So you can look at that and say, okay, yeah, they've won 2 games, both 2-0, which is a cracking start. I totally agree, but I think it's one of those with next to it. And as I say, I don't think Blackpool can be as bad this week. 3 weeks on the road, absolutely no chance. Will they be that bad this week? If they are, then they're in trouble. Well, Bruce will be down the road. I don't think the fans are big favourites of his anyway. Bradford, Luton, 30-26-44. Beat Wycombe first week, Bradford. 2 up within 13 minutes, but Wycombe came back into the game. They won 2-1, Bradford in the end. Last week, a 0-0 draw away at Northampton. I've not been overly impressed with Luton. I watched that first game against Wimbledon. They huffed and puffed, and it took them an hour to break down Peterborough last week. And that's the same Peterborough that, got beat the week before at Cardiff when Cardiff looked completely out of sorts. So I'm not so sure Luton's form's the strongest. Again, it's a tough game to call. If I had to bet, I would probably just back Luton, but not at the price. Cardiff Rotherham, 52-20, 28-20. 3-4 is far too short for a team that's disjointed. I think Cardiff will probably win the game. Because, as I say, there will be improvement week by week by week. And someone said to me about these teams, and like I said, I think there's Cardiff, Bristol Rovers, Plymouth, some of these sort of bigger sides, if you like, in these 2 divisions that have just got new managers. It's going to take a while. Cardiff have been a traditional, sort of maybe hump it up, long ball type, and all of a sudden we're tick-a-tacker playing through them, playing out from the back. So it's completely alien to a lot of these players. So it's going to take time. Do I think they'll win this game? Yes, probably. Do I think they should be 3-4? Absolutely not. Rotherham struggled to beat Port Vale first game of the season. They got downed at Stevenage last week. Doncaster Wycombe, 40-26-34. Doncaster won both games, but I'm not overly convinced by them. Again, I think it's a bit of a false reading. Potentially like what I was just saying about Huddersfield. But I do think Huddersfield are far better side than Doncaster. Doncaster beat Exeter 1-0, an 88th minute penalty. And they needed a 90th minute winner last week against Mansfield. Don't get me wrong, I like teams that fight to the end like that, and teams that are still on the go at that time of the game. That shows good heart. But Wycombe have lost both games away at Bradford and at home to Stockport. I think you can probably forgive them that. Because Stockport do look good, better than what I thought, but I don't know. This is a tough game to assess. Again, there's just 6 points between them. We're going to Orient Stockport. I mean, there's 4% between those two. Look, beat Bolton 2-0, won at Wycombe 2-1 last week. Stockport. Again, 1-0 down, come back to win. I like to see that. Orient turned over at Huddersfield 3-0, beat Wigan 2-0 last week. Could have been undercooked at Huddersfield, couldn't they? And like what I said earlier, but if I had to bet here, I would just, well, it's difficult, isn't it? I'd just probably back Orient because there's a bit of value, but they are just such hard games to call. Let's move on to the next game, Lincoln against Plymouth, 50-24-26. Beat Reading here 2-0, then got down 2-0 at Wimbledon last week, Lincoln. 2-0 win against Reading probably does read all right and probably will read all right in the long term, because I think Reading are okay. Plymouth have lost at home to Barnsley and have lost away at Bolton. If you look at the outright odds at the start of the season, you could probably say Bolton and Barnsley might be top 6. So they've not had the easiest start, but it does look completely disjointed. But they should have buried Barnsley first week. But if I had to bet here, I would bet Lincoln. We see them evens. They're 21-20.05. It's up to you whether you want to get involved. Reading Wimbledon 44-24-32. They've lost both games. Reading. there is mitigation, but it's the fact that they haven't scored. That is my big concern. Huddersfield beat Lincoln 2-0 and they put up a spirited performance away at Luton. I watched that game and it was an own goal, wasn't it, right at the end. That's not too bad. 0.6 at 32%. Finally, Stevenage Northampton 54-26-20. I was hoping to back Stevenage when I worked this game out at put them in at 5-6. I thought they might be evens. Can't believe they've put them in at 8-11. 3-2 win at Blackpool, 1-0 win over Rotherham. It's not the strongest form, but I think it's probably certainly good enough to see off Northampton. They were done 3-1 at Wigan and drew last time at home with newly promoted Bradford. I think they're going to be a team that struggles this season. I might be wrong. They might be really good, but that's just my feeling. Wigan Peterborough 50-25-25. Beat Northampton first game of the season 3-1. Then was down to Orient 2-0 last time out. Maybe not the best travellers. Peterborough lost away at Cardiff 2-1 and lost at home to Luton 2-0 last time. Now you can argue that Cardiff and Luton might be the two best sides in the division. I'm not saying they are. Before people get on my back, I'm just saying they possibly could be. Obviously along with the likes of Huddersfield, Stockport, etc. But there probably is a case to say that Cardiff and Luton are probably two of the top four, and Peterborough have played them both and lost to both of them. So I think this is probably more calmer waters, because I think Wigan are a mid-table side. So Peterborough, there's nothing in the game. I mean, 0.05 if you wanted to back Wigan, but it doesn't inspire me. Right, let's go on to League Two. Chesterfield Bristol Rovers 52-25-23. 10-11 we put them in there, 3-4. I thought they'd probably be shorter because bookmakers have got a bit of a love-in with Chesterfield. I don't see it. They've beaten Barrow and Cheltenham. Barrow 1-0, Cheltenham 2-0. Both of those, to my money, are bottom half of the Sable sides. Both are in the bottom four. I know we're in the embryonic stages of the season, but both are in the bottom four. Bristol Rovers, for me, still got one of the best squads in this division, and it's going to take time. That could look mighty huge after the game. It's 0.17. I've not put it up because you're not going to take 0.17 at 23%, but I'd be a bit slight. I would have a bit of a concern if they got turned over again. I think last week they were pretty good, decent against Harrogate, and Harrogate are a good side, and you know why? Because they've got the best manager in the division, or the second best manager in Pete Wild. He's championship level. I keep telling you this. One day he will get a decent job. I don't know why Blackpool just didn't give him the job instead of Bruce, and then they would be floundering where they are now, but that's their choice. They were better last week against Bristol, against Harrogate. Against Fleetwood. First week they got done by Harrogate. I think everything was everywhere that week. Undercooked, new manager, don't know what they're doing. But don't fall for this. You fall for that, you need your head seen to. I'm not saying that Chesterfield won't win, but if you're taking 3-4 at 10 to 11 shot, about 10 to 11 shots, can't win in the long run. I might just have the odd pound on that, because I know that they're far, far better than what we've seen, and this lot aren't as good as what we've seen. They've beaten two awful sides. Oldham Swindon 34-24-42. What do I think of Oldham? They've drawn both games. Drew away at MK Dons. I think that was a good performance. Then they drew at home to Colchester again, which I think was a good performance. Swindon lost at Walsall first week, which they shouldn't have done. And last week they should have been absolutely out of sight. That game should have been 5-2. Holloway would have done his nut after that, I can tell you. But fair play to Cambridge, they kept coming back. So, we've got to give them credit. But Swindon should have won that game a lot more comfortable than what they did. We backed them, but it was a members bet. But they should have won. We had a brilliant weekend last week on the members bet. We had 3 from 3 in England. And was it 6 from 9 or something in Scotland? It was all 5 from 9. I can't remember. But the maximum bet went in. It was an absolutely fantastic weekend for a second week. 3 out of 3 in England was brilliant. All bets were in League 2, our favourite league. See, 3 bets in League 2 last week, all of them won. It's just the best league, part of Scottish League 2. Tough game. I think Swindon but wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw. Barnet Walsall 37-29-34. I think this is absolutely ludicrous. Ludicrous. How do you bring Barnet in at 11-10? They've just got promoted. They've lost 2-0 at home to Fleetwood, 2-0 away at Bromley. So you're talking about a team that hasn't scored a goal, has shipped 4 goals against a Walsall side that beat Swindon, and we know how good Swindon are, and who only went down 1-0 to Gillingham last week, who again are probably a top 6 side. So straight away, for my money, Walsall, probably a top 6-7 side against probably the second or third worst team in the division. Yet they're putting it 11-10. 11-10. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous. If you're taking 11 to... I'll tell you what. If anybody wants to back Barnet this week, come and see me. You can have 5-4, look, all right? Give me a ring. Give me a message. You can have 5-4 with me about Barnet. Because they are not 11-10 shots or 5-4 shots. They're 17-10, 7-4. Walsall putting at 19-10 is an absolute insult. Oh God, no, sorry, we've not insulted Walsall, have we? The bookmakers have insulted Walsall by putting them in at 5-2. Sorry, I was ranting. They should be 19-10, not 5-2. This is a sodding insult. So if you want to back Barnet, give me a message and I'll give you 5-4. Or if you want to go for big money, well, I'll give you 11-8. Look, how about that? You can have 11-8 Barnet with me. That's a brilliant offer, isn't it? Give me a message. Come and take 11-8 with me about Barnet. Barrow Notts County 34-26-40. Barrow lost both games away at Chesterfield and at home to MK Dons. MK Dons showed a bit last week. I did say that they probably might do. It's the lack of goals that I was worried about. But to be fair, 0-0 against Oldham, 2-0. I mean, he's worked. I just want to say I can foresee a similar thing with Tottenham in the Premier League. Building from the back upwards, because, as I said, and that's what Paul Warne's done here. Get the defence sorted first. But, you know, the 0-0 against Oldham was poor. They were better last week. But they could be an under 2.5 team, MK Dons. Sorry, we've gone off track. Sorry, that's me. Because one thing leads to another. Barrow lost both games, 1-0 and 2-0. They've yet to score a goal. Notts County drew away at Newport first game, then lost at home to Salford. I wouldn't want to be touching this game if I'm honest. I mean, that figure there has been projected by their shortcomings. So, you know, I really wouldn't want to be getting involved. Bromley Fleetwood. Bromley's form isn't good, I don't think. 4 points from 2 games looks good, but 0-0 away at Shrewsbury, bottom 6 club, beat Barnet 2-0, probably the worst team in the division. Does that warrant them being 5-4? Absolutely no chance. There you go. Look, if you want 11-8 Bromley, come and see me because they're not 5-4 shots. There you go. Look, I'll give you 11-8 on Barnet and I'll give you 11-8 on Bromley. So come and get some of me because you got 2 teams very, very underpriced there. This game I couldn't split, but Fleetwood have won both games. 2-0 away at Barnet, and beat Bristol Rovers 2-1. So just remember what I said there. Fleetwood won away at Barnet 2-0. Bromley beat Barnet 2-0 at home. What would Fleetwood done at Barnet at home? 4-0? 3-0? Yeah, they're 5-4, they're 9-4. Have a word. If you want 11-8 Bromley and 11-8 Barnet, I'll give you 11-8 both. Cambridge Harrogate 59-23-18. Cambridge beat Cheltenham first game 1-0, but last week I was very impressed. I mean, they should have got more of a doing than they did. Swindon really do need to be better in front of goal. I think if Swindon can get it to click and be better in front of goal, I think they can win this division, and I really do think that. But Cambridge were on the outrights as well. I thought that was a really decent performance. I think we backed them. Did we back them first game of the season? I think we might have done. I can't remember. Did we back Cambridge first game of the season? I think we did. Anyway, and as I say, last week's performance was okay at Swindon. They play Harrogate this weekend. Harrogate Wasn't impressed with the performance last week. 3-3 at home to Grimsby. I don't rate Grimsby that highly. They won at Bristol Rovers first week, but again, like I've just said, I don't really think that they're ready yet. Bristol Rovers. Crewe Crawley 48-26-26. We backed Crewe last week. They won 3-1 at Salford first game, 2-0 at Accrington last week, 2-0 at home to Accrington. I think that's decent enough form, especially the Salford win. 6 points from 6. I did have a feeling when I put them in at 11-10, I thought, I bet they're going to be odds on, and they're even. So, shame that we're not going to get anything from the game. Crawley have lost both games away at Grimsby and at home to Newport. And what did I tell you about Newport last week? I told you I was back in Newport 9-2, weren't they, or something? They were 9-2, and they should have been 3-1 or something. That was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, they delivered for me, so I was very happy. This weekend, Newport go to Grimsby. Newport have drawn at home to Notts County and won at Crawley, as I've just said. They've scored in both games, shipped both. So I think it's safe to say that Grimsby are going to find the net this week, because Grimsby scored 3 against Crawley, 3 away at Harrogate. So there's certain to be goals. I think Grimsby will probably win. I know there's 2 points in Newport, but I think, we backed them last week to beat who did they just beat? Crawley. We backed Newport to beat Crawley last week, but I do think this is a massive step up in level. I think Crawley probably a bottom 6 team. This is a top half team. I don't think they're a great side, Grimsby, but I think they're probably a top half side. I see them at 4-6. They're 2s on. There's 2 points in Newport, but I'm not going to do them this week. Right, let's have a look. MK Dons are home to Cheltenham, 55-25-20. We make them 4-5. They're 8-13. There was never going to be any value here. I was in 2 minds about a bet in this game, and I'm not going to have it, but because I didn't think there was any value. But if you want to bet in this game, and I was this was almost on the account for members. Sorry, I've just dropped the mouse. This was almost on the account for members, and that was MK Dons to win to 0. So that was a bet I was toying with about putting on the account for members, MK Dons to win to 0. Because I can't see Cheltenham scoring. Cheltenham couldn't score at home to Chesterfield or away at Cambridge. And MK Dons, I would probably cover 2-0 and 3-0 and MK Dons to win to 0. But there wasn't the value there. It's like last week we backed Inverness to win half-time and full-time, Inverness to win to 0. And they did. But there was value there. There's no value in MK Dons winning to 0. But as I say, it was a bet which I did toy with putting up. So MK Dons to win to 0 and probably cover the 2-0 and 3-0 if you had to play. Salford against Accrington, 55-25-20. I think they're short enough at 7-10, Salford. They got done at home by Crewe 3-1. Won away at Notts County last week. I think that was a decent performance. The home result against Crewe might not read so bad in the overall scheme of things, because I do rate Crewe. I think they're an alright side. Accrington, I think they'll be bottom 7 or 8 as per usual. Drew at home to Gillingham. It got turned over at Crewe last week. So Crewe have done both of these. If I had to bet, I would just side with Salford. Finally, to Shrewsbury against Colchester, 38-24-38. I found this game a struggle. Shrewsbury got a tanking at Tranmere last week 4-0. We were on Tranmere, members bet. That was a good bet, I thought. I really did think that was a good bet. First week they drew 0-0 with Bromley, so they've yet to find the net. That has to be a concern. Colchester have drawn 1-1 with Tranmere, 1-1 with Oldham. Colchester have found the net both times. So if I had to play here, I would just side with Colchester. But we've not seen anything at home really from Shrewsbury. A 0-0 home draw with Bromley might not be the worst. Tranmere Gillingham, 45-25-31. Gillingham drew at Accrington 1-1, beat Walsall 1-0 last time out. goals probably look a bit of a problem there. Whereas Tranmere 1-1 at Colchester, 4-0 against Shrewsbury. So I felt this was a tough game to call. I did think Tranmere warranted being favourites, I have to say, but I think they're a bit short at 23-20. There's 0.6 in Gillingham if you needed to play. It's not a game that I'd really want to get overly involved with. Best bet in these leagues, I'm not going to say it as it's a members bet. Best all-round bet for me is probably MK Dons to win to 0 against Cheltenham. I'd probably have, if I was going to play this myself, and I will play this myself, but it's just no value in it for members, I would probably have a couple of points on MK Dons to win to 0 and a point on 2-0 and a point on 3-0. And I think you'll come out with that all right. MK Dons to win to 0, by the way, is 13-8, which I just felt was a bit too short. But to win 2-0, they're 6-1 and 3-0 is 11-1. So that's what I'm going to do that. I'm going to have 2 points on them but these aren't 2 points as in 2 points I would have as a bet. I'm just going to have a couple of points, as I say, at to win to 0, because I think they will win to 0, and a point on the 2-0 and a point on the 3-0. And if they end up winning 4-0, we still get paid out. If they end up winning 1-0, we still get paid out. If they win 2-0, happy days. 3-0, happier days. That's my approach to that game. Right, let's move on to Scotland. We're light on matches, I'm afraid. We've only got 4 in League 1 and we've got a full coupon in League 2. It's because of the League Cup. So I think it's a very tricky week. Right, Cove Montrose, 50, 26, 24. We see Cove at evens. They've been putting odds on. I'm not so sure about that. They've yet to score a goal. They've lost both games. Montrose have lost both games. Both of these are -3 on the goals, so it's very hard to call. But I just think that Cove ought to have too much. I think they've got a better squad than Montrose. And I know that Montrose think it's going to be a tough trip this weekend. Hamilton East 5, 66, 22, 12. 2's on, we make them. They're 7-10, so there's a smidge in them. They've been all right, Hamilton. We're on them on the outrights as well. They beat Montrose 2-0. Last week was a brilliant result. To win 4-1 at Queen of the South, I think that's a decent result. I really do. East Fife, I told you they're going to struggle. 4-1 doing against Peterhead first week. Lost at home to Alloa last week. We were on Alloa on the members' bets. That was one of those that was advised early on the Monday. I don't think East Fife are going to survive this season. I really don't. I think they're the worst team in the division. But I said before, this division, there's 5. You've got 2 groups of 5. You've got Hamilton, Inverness, Alloa, Queen of the South, and Cove. And then you've got East Fife, Montrose, Kelty, Steny and Peterhead. I think, you know, you can put it into 2 sections. Inverness, Stenhouse, 71-29. We were on them last week as a maximum and to win to 0 and half-time, full-time, and they've done the business. Played 2-1-2, 5 goals scored, none conceded. They'll win this weekend. Just a damn shame on the prices. 0.04 in them at 71%. It's up to you if you want to do it or not, but they'll win. Steny got turned over at home to Alloa, beat Cove last week. They might score Steny, so I wouldn't be taking Inverness to win to 0, but Inverness will get it done. And what are they now? They're +1, aren't they, on the points? So they're 5 points off top now. They've it's all systems go. I think they're going to walk this division. Queen of the South, Peterhead, 52, 28, 20. We make them a shade of odds on their evens, despite getting done 4-1 last week. Peterhead got done at Inverness. Peterhead beat East Fife. That's their only win. Don't be fooled by that. East Fife, the worst side in the division. As simple as that. 71% is a massive high rating, though. Sorry. Right, finally League 2, and then we'll do the weekly double, etc. Right, Clyde Spartans. Tough game to assess. Clyde played 2, drawn 1, lost 1. Got done by Dumbarton first game. I don't think that's the worst form now. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Home last week, 0-0 at home to Forfar. And Forfar the previous week had beaten Stranraer 1-0. Forfar haven't shipped a goal, but we'll come to that game in a minute. Spartans first week, won at East Kilbride 3-1, lost at home to Dumbarton last week 2-1. A tough game to assess. There's nothing in them. If I had to bet, I would side with Spartans. Dunbarton Elgin, 55-25-20. As I say, Dunbarton won both games. Elgin lost to Annan and lost last week at home to East Kilbride. Dunbarton have beaten Clyde and won away at Spartans. You'd have to fancy Dunbarton here on what we know so far, and they do look to be a better all-round team than Elgin. East Kilbride against Stranraer, 66-22-12. 130 on is just absolutely ludicrous. Bookmakers, I mean, we're not being offered anything. That's, what is that, sort of 78% chance? I mean, that leaves you 22% to play with a draw in Stranraer if we're taking the bookmakers' figures. That's an insult. Not that I think Stranraer will win. I think East Kilbride will win. But come on, that's a ridiculous price. There's 2 points in Stranraer. They won't win. East Kilbride will get it done. Edinburgh Annan, 36-24-40. Annan unbeaten. Beat Elgin. Drew away at Stirling. Edinburgh lost at home to Stirling. Won away at Stranraer. Their heads could have gone down, Edinburgh, after what's happened. But I think that might get resolved fairly quick. Forfar Stirling, 40-28-32. Tough game to assess. Forfar have played 2, 1-1, drawn 1, but only scored the 1 goal. Stirling won away at Edinburgh 2-0, drew 0-0 with Annan. I don't see a lot of goals in this one, if I'm honest. If I had to play, I would probably back the draw. But honestly, guys, it's a tough week in Scotland. It really is. We've only got the 2 coupons, as I say. England's tough as well. Let's have a look at this double. Right, weekly double. Inverness and East Kilbride. 1 point, that pays 1.38 to 1 with Hills. That's roughly in. And the treble, East Kilbride, Inverness and Cambridge. That pays just over 100 to 30, and that's with Hills as well. Sorry. So you've got Inverness and East Kilbride as a double, Inverness, East Kilbride and Cambridge as the treble. That's it, guys. Fingers crossed for a good week. It was an excellent week last week. Let's hope for more of the same. Back next week. Bye for now.